online for authors. I'm chatting with Roseanne D'Ausilio, author of Pain, Pumpernickel, and Profound Forgiveness. Welcome, Roseanne.
Nice to be here. Thank you for the invite.
I'm super excited to have you. I enjoyed the book, but before we really start talking about it, can you give the listeners a quick idea of what they're going to find within these pages?
The word that comes to mind are miracles. What you expected the turnout to be isn't what it is. It's better than I could have planned it. And as I was reading it and writing it and editing it and going back and forth, I learned, if I'd have known I was going to learn so much, I would have done it way back when. But I couldn't do it way back when because I lost the vignettes, all the little stories. They were gone. And I thought, okay, the universe just wants me to write them. That's it. I'll have to live with that. And then I moved from New York to Virginia. And on my filing cabinet was a bunch of 3x5, not 3x5, 8x11 binders with the plastic in the front that you could put a sheet down and say, this is from your participation in yada, yada, yada. And as I was taking them down and putting them in a carton, between two of them was the file folder with all the stories. And I just went, thank you, thank you, thank you.
I know,
and
isn't
then
that crazy?
Got serious about writing a memoir.
Absolutely. What made you decide in the first place that you wanted to write a memoir?
I wanted people to know who my father was, the good, the bad, and the ugly. I wanted it to be a legacy to my family originally, because I have a very small family and I have a few cousins, and they probably knew my father, but not well. And I thought that it would make for interesting read. And I thought I would share my experience. People kind of encouraged me. And then I took a course in memoir writing. And instead of doing the assignments, I submitted the copy of one of the chapters I wrote. And I got positive feedback. Took it with a grain of salt because everybody wants you to win. But it kept being consistent, and they kept giving me really great ideas of how to improve it. And one story at a time.
So let's talk about that. A lot of people write a memoir where you're kind of going along chapter after chapter and you're moving through someone's life. And yours, each chapter is its own story. It's its own little vignette and could stand alone. So you could turn any of these in for like a short story competition or something like that. They're standalone stories. But when put together, they then tell the whole thing. What made you decide on that format versus a kind of chronological, just go through and tell your story?
Because all I had were stories. I didn't have anything that connected the stories other than my father and myself, but I didn't think of it that way. And interesting that you asked that question, because the editor that I hired for several $1,000s told me that the order I put it in was no good. It was confusing, and I had to redo all the order of the stories. It couldn't be chronological because I was confusing people. The other thing she told me is that she was very surprised when she read my book, because I have it that it's about my father, and she read about my mother.
So it's interesting because you said it was about your father, and in my book review, I said it was about your father and your mother, because we did learn a lot about her as well.
But I told her that this was, so I changed it to parents.
Right.
And I had agita. It wasn't setting well with me. And I went back and I looked and I said, this is not about my mother. My mother is in the book simply to show you how alone I was as a child. I didn't have anyone in my corner. And so what I did to satisfy her and myself is I wrote in the introduction this little what I just told you about my mother. And then she got what she needed, and I could go back to it's about my father.
Exactly.
I had the same idea with the name of the book. I had a hard time with it. And everyone that helped me and that gave me suggestions and I went along with it. I want it to go clunk. I want it to go clunk. This is not doing it. And they were rolling their eyes. Now I'm in a publishing environment where I paid thousands of dollars to be in, and I'm not a happy camper. And so I came up with the title that I have now, and that went clunk. And now all those people that had these judgments about me are experiencing the same thing with their book and how it has to be the right title.
It does. And that is really hard. I have a hard time with titles. I always think, how am I supposed to sum up my book in just a few words? And it's difficult. I have a really tough time with titles. And with like you, I've gone back and forth with my publisher where I'll throw some out and they'll say, no, I don't like those. And they'll throw some out and I'll think, oh, I don't like those. And we go back and forth and back and forth. In fact, my first book, when it came out, I thought it would come out unnamed. I just figured it was going to be called Untitled, you name it. I could not come up with something. So I understand. But when you find the right title, you're like, that's it.
And
you just know.
For the miracle.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Tell us some of the things that you learned along the way. You said that if you had known what you were going to learn, you would have done it sooner. What kinds of things did you learn?
Yeah. After it was written and I stepped far away, I learned that I was taking personally a lot of the ways my father was treating me. When in fact, when you take into account who he is, how old he was, how he was brought up, where he was born, and his commitment to being a good father, a good provider, all of that, he only knew how to do what his father before him had done.
Right.
And there's the era that I grew up in, your parents weren't your friends, they were your parents. So when we went somewhere together, it's not like I could have a conversation, hey, let me tell you what happened today. I had to be a good girl and sit, and children should be seen and not heard, that whole generation. Right. And I thought it was because I was less than.
So isn't it interesting how when we can kind of step back from a situation that we can learn to see it in a different way? I've had a rocky relationship with my own parents, my own mother in particular. And as I've grown older, I just keep realizing, you know what? She did everything she knew to do. And isn't that wonderful that she could do that for me? And would I have done it differently? Well, I'm a different person in a different time with different skills and different understandings and so yes, you have to kind of learn not to hold people in the past accountable to the same thing that you would do now, because then and now are different times.
Yeah, I'm excited that it continues to happen, but I'm excited that it's shifting my perception.
Right.
By seeing something differently. And what a gift.
It is a gift. It's a gift to be able to look at a situation in your life and then flip it around and see it from a different perspective, or just be able to give it maybe even a different name, to be able to allow it to just be what it is instead of putting all the feelings that went into it. Because when you're a child, you're right. What do you know? But it must be because of me. Right,
exactly. It must be my fault.
Yes.
And when I was a kid, we were I forgot the name of it, the perfect family out and about. We were sometimes we were dressed identical. We were just perfect when we were out. And when we were home, I couldn't do anything right.
Yeah.
So the mixed messages of childhood, and you don't talk about what goes on in the family outside the family. So absolutely. I thought everyone's family was like my family.
Yeah. And then isn't that interesting when you start getting out into the world and then you realize, wait a minute, this isn't the same everywhere we go.
Yeah, well, we were the Stepford family. There was no doubt about it. I was a Stepford child, and that's how we lived our life. We were into being whoever you wanted us to be, rather than having your own identity, right. which becomes hard when you get older, because it doesn't matter how old you are, you can make peace with your past. But you can't, where's the barometer? The barometer used to be, if you want me to be blue, I'll be blue. If you want me to be green, I'll be green. I like purple, but there isn't anybody doing that, so I won't be purple. And then who am I? I'm being judged by outer and other, when in fact it's an inside job. And that's
Right.
another lesson I learned, which is a very big lesson. And I have to be really conscious about it, because I can go right back to like an avatar. They
Well,
didn't
and
have that word then.
right, but that's the way it is whatever you learned growing up, those skills that you learned for survival, whatever that meant in your world, it's hard to let those go when you don't need them anymore. It's like it worked for you as an 8-year-old, but does it still work for you now? And if the answer is no, then you need to find a new way. But it's so easy, especially when things get tough, to go
Yeah,
sliding back and do the old way again.
that's the knee jerk. The knee jerk. You have to be conscious to
Absolutely.
make a different decision.
Absolutely. One of the things that you talk about in the book is divine interventions. So give me your definition of that, and then let's talk about like an example.
Divine intervention to me is having the outcome be something I never thought of and was much better than where I was thinking of it.
Okay.
And if I just get out of the way, my life is very different than when I'm pushing the rock up the hill, trying to
Exactly.
control what's going on. If I just let go, which if I let go, it won't work, it'll fall apart, someone will hold me accountable, fill in the blank. What if it works?
Right.
I
Right. So
just had it happen to me last week. I fell and I'm having a new hip put in August 27th. I couldn't get a date sooner. I wasn't going to do it. I'm going to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do it. And then I decided I was going to do it. I said, could I do it tomorrow? And they said, no, we don't have an opening until. So as soon as they locked me in for August 27th, I made a reservation to go to the Caribbean for 6 weeks. My family's flipping out. How could you do that? You could barely take care of you. Or how could you? I called the airline, I made a reservation, and that's where I am, and that's where I'm going to be until I come back. I'm very responsible about it. I have my appointments. And
right.
now, when I have the surgery and I'm healed, I can turn around and come back without having to worry about leaving again. Then I can stay as long as I want. So that wasn't in my viewfinder. My viewfinder was I was going to have to wait it out and then miss going away until maybe November. And
Right.
then how long would I be gone for? And none of it worked. But it worked much more in the book. This story I just told you just happened last week, so that's
Yeah.
not in the book. But
I know,
the
but
story,
I love that. I love that idea of things kind of turn out the way they're supposed to.
yeah. So now here I am, and I'm tired because it was a long journey. But after today, I have a couple days off. Can't get any better than that.
Absolutely.
And and what I learned, this is a new one, that my kids are grown. They're entitled to their, you know, decisions and their judgments about me, but it doesn't have anything to do with me.
Right. Right.
They're talking about how I should do this surgery, and I'm saying, you could do whatever you want, but this is not about you. This is about me, which
Right.
I never
And
said
that's
before.
it's hard to say, and it's hard for children to hear, because they're now they've flipped the script on you. You know, for a long time you were the parent and taking care of them, and now all of a sudden they
Exactly.
feel like they need to be taking care of you and that they should be in control. And you're like, accept that, I still can be in control. And I tell my kids that. I'll say, there may come a point where I can't be in control. There may come that point, but until that gets here, I make those decisions.
Yeah, good for
Yeah.
you. Good for
Yeah.
you.
So that
What
is
really
interesting.
shocked me was I wrote the book as a legacy to my family, to my
Right.
children, and that's a mistake. It's not true. when I saw I don't know if you had a chance to read any of the reviews. I have over 120 reviews, and I'm impressed and shocked. So many came from men. I thought men would run away from the emotions. And it's not happening. And they're writing, and they're right in the Washington, D.C. area. There's a lot of military. So here's a bunch of military brats who were brought up by a father who was missing.
Right.
I was going to say missing in action, but not really missing
right.
in action.
But missing from the home life. Right.
And reading the book shifted his perception of how he sees his father. And it just touched me how men were really willing to share. Some of the things that activated them was the chess story, which was like something I wasn't even going to put in the book because I didn't know enough about it. So you never know what's going to touch someone and make a shift in their life. So I feel like I have a responsibility to get the message out there that you're never too old or too young to make peace with your past. And it's like throwing something over your shoulder, get it out of there.
Right. So you started as this family legacy, learned that that's really not what you were writing it for, that you were writing it for other people and for yourself, because you yourself have learned so much.
Oh, yeah.
When people walk away, they've read your book, they walk away, besides realizing, well, I can make peace with my past. What do you want them to walk away with?
Walk away with that they have choices in life and they don't have to go backwards. That's why they have a small rear view mirror and a big one in the car that's up above. The more you can release some of the people you held hostage because of the way they behaved, the more freedom you'll have. And that gives me choices, and it gives me the ability to live in the present more, which is where all the goodies are anyway.
Exactly. Living in the past it definitely traps you. It holds you.
Yeah, I don't think people live in the past as much as get triggered backwards. And that's the opportunity. Do I push the ball uphill, which is what I've always done, or do I take a stand on who I am and what I want? Or do I just honor the people that are trying to help me, say thank you, my dance card is full?
Right.
I have to do it my way. I have to learn my lessons. And I take risks. This is a risk. Writing my book was a risk. I've written lots of books. I've written about 14 or 15 books, business books, all about the human. I'm a former customer service expert. And this book was about my insides, not my outsides.
Yeah.
Which is a risky thing to do.
It is risky. There is something very risky about putting yourself out there, essentially on display for other people. They're going to read your words and then they're going to tell you what they think. And it can be very risky because it's a little scary. What if they hate it? What if everybody says bad things? What if? And I had to learn that when I'm writing, that first I'm writing for me. That I want to get my words out there, and am I okay with that? And then whatever anybody else sees in it, that's on them. That's not on me. Well, but it's a hard place to come to.
I'm sure. You have to take a stand for who you are when you never mattered.
Right.
But reading the reviews, people talked about my vulnerability.
Yeah.
And they gave me words to what it was I was doing. And they talked about how they were able to shift the perception of how they saw something. So I knew I was making a difference, and I feel like I have a responsibility to do something with that for people. I'm not sure what it's going to be yet, whether it's a workshop, whether it's a one-on-one. I do coaching, but this is a little different area. So,
right. And so it's maybe opened up something new for you to consider as to like where you're going next with this idea, right?
Instead of figuring it out, I'm putting it out to the universe that I'm available to contribute. And one of the other things that I say, and I don't know if it's in my book or not, my mantra is I live in the land of abundance and the space of possibility.
Oh, I love that. That's
And
beautiful.
I wouldn't be here right now today, nor would you in this moment in time if it wasn't for that. Because the universe, when you're clear, gives you what you want.
Yeah.
I shouldn't say what you want, gives you what you need,
What you need.
not what you
Right.
want.
Right.
But sometimes they're one and the same. And it's just being willing to step off the ledge. Yeah.
Willing to say, okay, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to give this a shot. Right.
And if I don't get what I want, I'm going to get the lesson. So I recently did a book signing at Barnes & Noble. I was the only one they had with the table set up for me as soon as people walked in the door. And I advertised it in the newspapers. It was on barnesandnoble.com. It was in a local, brand new Barnes & Noble. It was on Father's Day. My book is about my father and I. And so I was all set for a huge amount of people. I sent it to my database. I did everything you would do to have a really huge, and the people that said they were coming didn't come. 6 people came. I can tell you that there were things going on in Washington, D.C., like 100 years of service in the Army, protesters doing whatever. There were protesters going on near where I was in Manhattan.
We're breaking up again.
And I was very disappointed. And so I shifted how I saw it, because I was taking it personally that the people that said they were going to come didn't. And I got the advertisement. That was all free. That was all what I did. And I got clear. Nothing against Barnes & Noble, but that's not how I want to get the word out.
Right.
I want to get the word out this way.
Right. So you learned
I
a
want to
lesson.
get the word out. Yeah. So you either get what you want or you get the lesson.
Well, and the other thing that the other thing I always try to remember is yes, you did a lot for the advertising and you wouldn't want to do that again, but you did reach 6 people. There were 6 people that came and you did get to talk with them, and you never know what might come of one of those. So I always just try to remember that it isn't so much a numbers game, and it isn't so much a number of sales as much as, did I get out there? Did I do my best? Did I do what I was supposed to do? And then we'll reevaluate and see, like, would I do that again? And the answer might be no, but it wasn't a waste. You did do things. And so, that's always good.
It's like a barometer of how invested are you in the outcome.
Yeah. Yeah. And I try not to be so much, I always look at it from a wide perspective. Did I meet people? Did I, did anyone say something to me that made my day? Like, if I can find any of those things, then I think, okay, then it was at least somewhat successful, at least in this way. What do you have planned next? You said you've written before, but those were mostly business books, and now you've written a memoir. Do you have any other writing projects in mind? Do you think you'll write again?
I really enjoy the writing. I really do enjoy it. And I did it with a group of people in a publishing company. And so they were like cheerleaders for every stage that we were at. And I'd like to be able to address the greatest amount of people at a time. So if I had my druthers, I would get back into, I'm a corporate person my whole life.
Yeah.
And I would like to get back into corporate America and make a difference to the robots and the avatars that live there and help them become peaceful with their past and see whether, there's so many people now that have, ever since COVID, gone into their own business, but they're playing it like a game rather than something that'll take them into the future. Because even though they're, on their own little platform, that platform is small. It's like, you have a bunch of fish in a fishbowl that's this big, and you decide they should have a bigger one because they're getting bigger, and you buy a fishbowl this big. Do you know the fish only go to the edge as if the edges were still there?
Right.
That's what we do. That's what we do. You give me a bigger house, I'll treat it the way my little house was treated. Because I'm still a little house person inside. That's where the
until you
repair
learn
has
to come
be.
out, right?
Exactly. You need to step
Absolutely.
into that uncomfortable spot of saying, this is who I am. This is who I want to be.
Absolutely. So, hey guys, if you want to keep this conversation going, head on over to Novels and Latte Book Club on Facebook. There, you're going to have a chance to win a digital copy of Pain, Pumpernickel, and Profound Forgiveness. So, Roseanne, tell me, if someone wanted to get in touch with you, talk with you about what you've learned with this book, hire you to come and talk, that kind of thing, how do they get up with you? What's the best way to reach you?
Go to my website, which is Dr. Roseanne, DRROS, like in Sam, ANNE.com, or you could shoot me an email at drro, DRRO, the number 1, at Comcast.net.
Super. I will
And
have
I'm
those in
on
the show
social
notes.
media, so you have plenty of ways to find me.
Yeah,
and I would
absolutely.
I for 6 or 8 people or more, I'd be happy to come and speak.
Fantastic. So, guys, I'll have everything in the show notes. I'll have ways for you to purchase the book. Definitely run out and get that. You're going to love what you read here, and also ways to get up with Dr. Roseanne. And I want to thank you, Roseanne, so much for being with me today.
Well, thank you for having me, and I'm glad that we didn't have too much snow.
Yeah. Fantastic. It was nice chatting with you.
Okay, have a great day, everyone, unless you have other plans.
Thank you for listening to Online for Authors, where I, Terry M. Brown, author of character-driven fiction and host of the podcast, introduce readers to characters they'd love to invite to lunch. Tune in next Tuesday for another podcast episode.